It is the 20th of the 8th, 2025. The time is 10 minutes past 8. That means, as always, one thing, that there are multitudinous F1 centric threads at which we need to pull. Of course, we'll talk about Valterri, Bottas and what that means for Checo Perez, that Cadillac F1 have signed him for 2026. So too, we'll talk about the business of F1, and so too, we'll talk about Carlos Sainz Jr. and all of the virality around that fella, and Sir Lewis, Cole, Davidson, Hamilton, Scuderia Ferrari settings, the red car with the yellow badge and black prancing horse atop. In the first instance, however, I've seen this. I think this is techie, chat. Really techie. They want to say that F1 is dying as a commercial entity. You'll bet your bottom dollar it is not. Look at the number of commercial partners that these guys and girls have, all from Haas all the way down to, or up to even McLaren. Got a gazillion distribution partners as far as the commercial spot. This is techie, chat. And again, look at how much money they're spending if you're talking title sponsors. HP for that very ugly blue and white logo on them, their red overalls. Pay anywhere between 90 and 100 million as estimated. That, ladies and gentlemen, is chaos. You got Google, OK, whatever, and bloody MasterCard paying 80 to 100 million for McLaren title sponsorship. 75 million is how much Mercedes get for their association with Petronas. Aramco are paying 75 million to Aston Martin, and Oracle are paying only 60 million USD to Red Bull. This is chaos. A rising drive to survive tide floats all F1 boats, apparently. Shout out to 2021. Shout out to COVID as well. Shout out to the F1 movie, the biggest grossing movie of Brad Pitt's career. This is techie, chat. Looking at this, I mean, nobody's not going to tell me that money doesn't exist in Formula One. That's why when Mohammed bin Sulayem, FIA president of the FIA, wants to talk about the drivers should pay for it. Are you having a giraffe? I know that our FIA president Mohammed bin Sulayem, as one of his key remits, his central tenets, is to make sure that the FIA are turning a profit. But when you look at this, I can't help but feel like there is hypocrisy going on. Oh, and by the way, yesterday your boy was perusing Twitter, this time last night, and I saw Carlos Sainz trending. I'm like, what's going on here? Surely that's got to be Carlos Sainz Senior. It can't be Carlos Sainz Jr. Well, of course it was Junior, because Frederick Vasseur had come out and said a couple of different things. The comparison here was Carlos Sainz and Sir Lewis. Of course, the context around Sir Lewis, 14 races to date, 0 podiums. That's the worst non-podium streak of Sir Lewis Hamilton's career. John Elkann et al., all the C-suite exec level bods at Scuderia Ferrari will not be looking for that. They want to see that situation rectified, build a flipping car, have a team, have an operational infrastructure. Loic, Serra, all these other bods, I'm not sure they're fit for purpose. At least if you were to speak to Sir Lewis Hamilton, that's what I think he would say. However, Frederick Vasseur compared Sir Lewis, and again, he's trying to justify, explain away the reasons for the material underperformance season to date of the $100 million man, Sir Lewis Hamilton. And in that, he said the following: Lewis is not like Carlos Sainz Jr. He changes teams every few years and is familiar with the acclimatization process. Therefore, Lewis needed 4 to 5 races to get the situation under control. Since the Canadian Grand Prix, he has actually been on track. To the latter first. True, we talked about convergence and that in qualifying terms, Sir Lewis Hamilton, apart from Monaco and before the Belgian Grand Prix upgrade, had been catching one Charles Leclerc. Over the course of 6 races, they were 3-3, and that is chaos. If we're doing F1 maths, Charles Leclerc is, some say, but point to point, the quickest potentially ever that we've seen on the grid. And for Sir Lewis Hamilton in his maiden voyage with Scuderia Ferrari to have a stint of 6 races where he's 3-3 is chaos. But yet and still, the headline is as follows: 14 races, no podiums. He's circa 40 points behind Charles Leclerc in the Drivers' Championship, and that's all that Elkann et al. Will care about. That's why you hear Frederick Vasseur having to justify it. In the latter, he's correct, but to the former, when he's talking about Lewis needed 4 or 5 races and the bloody rest, So now we know that listen, you've got to normalise for the fact that he doesn't like the car. They can't run it as low to the ground as they would like. It lacks the rigidity at the rear as far as the suspension. That car is very narrow as far as its operating window. They've changed 99% of the parts in the final year of this rule and reg set. Of course, you've got to normalise for all of these bits and bobs. But ultimately, the headline numbers jump off the page at you. And then the comparison, I understand what Frederick Vasseur is trying to do, saying that it's a very different circumstance, Sir Lewis. He's been at Mercedes, a Mercedes engine teamed all his life, 2007 through to 2013. McLaren, they had a Mercedes engine. 2014 through to 2024. Mercedes, they always, of course, they're a works team. Of course, they were going to have a Mercedes engine. So all that he's aware of is the Mercedes engine talk. All that he's ever been used to is the carbon industry brakes. That's his team. That's been his home. So, of course, therefore, it's going to take him longer to acclimatise to a team than Carlos Sainz Jr. However, the Carlos Sainz Emirati, their unique brand of fundamentalist thesis, they said, what are you talking about, mate? That sounds like a dig on our guy. He's not like Carlos Sainz, who skips team, who is a club hopper per se. What are you talking about, Frederick Vasseur? And they decided to clap back, didn't they, on Twitter? This is what some of them said. Some of the Carlos Sainz fundamentalists, abbots of unreason, dare I say. So they started to talk. Ferrari overestimated 40-year-old Hamilton and underestimated Carlos Sainz Jr., who, with his feedback and knowledge, helped build the best Ferrari Ferrari had in years, and together with Charles, they gave Ferrari their highest number of points in F1 history. Oh, the humanity, chat. No lies told. That the truth is around the Carlos Sainz Jr. thesis that a Carlos Sainz Jr. rising tide floats all F1 team boats. There is something known as the Carlos Sainz effect, and he speaks to this, that every time he joins the team starts off here, and that by dint of his technical feedback, the colour and richness of it, the team always does one of these. That in the constructors, McLaren were once here when he first joined, and then when he left, they were here. Similar story with Ferrari. They were here before he joined, and then by the time that he left, they were there in the Constructors' Championship. Same story with Toro Rosso. He improves all teams because he has this, as well as not being a bad peddler, he has this god-tier ability to translate feedback on track into meaningful feedback to engineers off track. He's a different level, and that much, I don't think you can argue. To argue against would be disingenuous. I don't think any lies have been told here, and that's why legends, F1 aficionados, the likes of whom are Peter D. Windsor, say that they should have kept Carlos Sainz Jr. If it wasn't broke, don't fix it, particularly at the altar of fame and stardom and marketing upside. Mention no names, Sir Lewis, Carl Davidson, Hamilton PLC. It's techie, very, very techie that. Oh, and by the way, got to talk about some Valtteri Bottas now, because the big news of the day is that Valtteri Bottas apparently has signed a deal in principle with Cadillac F1. This is reported by Planet F1. Listen, apparently the news will break proper. Still rumour and conjecture and speculation until we get the yellow banner on Sky Sports News officially confirming it. However, it seems like this rumour has been bubbling for a couple of weeks now. We talked about it, I want to say seven, maybe 10 days ago. It was agreed in principle between Bottas and Cadillac F1. Here's the context. Cadillac F1 don't have money to throw down the drain. As much as I'd love for them to sign a Felipe Drugovich or a Teo Pourchaire, somebody new and fresh, since we've got plenty of old dogs on the grid, they were always going to sign. They need a tried and trusted hand. They don't have time to fail fast. They need a Valtteri Bottas who again, he's got a record right. I remember when Valtteri Bottas first signed Mercedes, so Lewis Hamilton fans, myself included, were quivering in their boots. I thought that Valtteri could beat Lewis Hamilton, might even beat Lewis Hamilton, and he did on occasion in quali and the right. That's how good Valtteri Bottas is and can be when he's had his Weetabix. So I think Cadillac F1 are doing the right thing. But what's interesting here, they said that they're going to announce it in the week leading up next week, the week leading up to Zandvoort Grand Prix, round 15, the Dutch Grand Prix. What's interesting about that, whatever happened to Checo Perez? This time last week, we were having conversations about Checo Perez first. Well, the word on the F1 curb is that they will sign him alongside Valtteri. Techie. F1 purists would be like, surely you should sign a young gun. Why are you signing these old bods who are proven? They're past it. I'm not sure that Valtteri Bottas is past it. Here's the thing with Valtteri and Checo Perez shortly thereafter. Valtteri is and always has been a renegade. Like, he's in love with coffee. You'll see him doing the triathlons. But that's become a meme and it's viral in and of itself. It doesn't come with a gazillion million pounds like Checo Perez does by dint of Carlos Slim's sponsorship. But yeah, and still is a personality, a viral personality. And I think that that aligns with Cadillac F1 becoming the 11th member on the grid. That being said, you heard me say I wasn't a big fan of Valtteri Bottas in 2021. I feel like he was instrumental in deciding that championship. He was a no-show. Talk about clutch or lack thereof. At Abu Dhabi, when Lewis Hamilton needed him most, he was gonzo, AWOL, missing in action. And same thing again at Turkey. He was gonzo. Every time Checo Perez was able to inject himself into the title fight to be quick enough to be dangerous, hazardous to Sir Lewis Hamilton's health. Where was Valtteri Bottas? Nowhere to be seen in 2021. But burnout is a real thing. Maybe now he's had time to exhale, collect his thoughts. Maybe he comes back and he's a god-tier driver again, because once upon a time he had it. Look at the bloody stats. 100% Q3 record, the only Mercedes driver to have that. I mean, when he's ready, he's not lacking for speed, eh? Not a bad driver at all. Here's what happens next, chat. Over the next couple of weeks, you will hear this announced officially. Valtteri Bottas, Cadillac F1's first driver. Now, should they go for a younger driver as the second driver? That's what I would prefer. Felipe Drugovich, it breaks my heart to see him on the Aston Martin pit wall, holding up bloody best work experience ever placards, just like Oscar Piastri did at Alpine. Hearing the Brazilian contingent at the Brazilian Grand Prix last year chant Drugo, Drugo, Drugo when Lance Stroll was beached in the bloody gravel after having recovered his car. What are we doing here, chat? Where is the equity in this weird and wacky world that we call the Wonder Fs? There is none. It is only nepotism as far as Aston Martin are concerned, and that breaks my heart. So why not sign, therefore, one Felipe Drugovich, Cadillac F1? Well, the truth is this. Cadillac F1 aren't in F1 to play about. If you have yourself in one hand a tried and tested F1 driver who's pushed Lewis Hamilton on occasion, who's beat Lewis Hamilton, then you have to sign him. Similar thing with Checo. They'll look back on Checo and say, well, he won a race in 2020. For a while there in 2022, when he had the understeery car, he was pushing Maximilian Verstappen. Again, tried and tested. Oh, and by the way, Checo Perez is going to come with anywhere between 20 and 30 million US dollars per year by dint of the Carlos Slim sponsorship. Now, when you're a brand new team, go and ask Toyota, go and ask HRT, go and ask Marussia. When you're a brand new team, Jaguar even too, brand new team on the grid, every penny counts if you want to continue to be a going concern. You need to hang in there long enough, avoiding any financial stop losses, with a view to then one day in the not too distant future start winning races and championships. It won't happen early on for Cadillac F1, and that's why, ladies and gentlemen, it gets techier than techie things. They cannot afford to risk a Felipe Drugovich, a young, hungry line, as much as I'd love for them to. So John Perry, your legend, outstanding stream this morning. Appreciate your poignant breakdown of that interview. Truth is not great. So John, I appreciate you, mate. It was a bit techie that. I'd watched that and I was like, this is almost too good to be true. all of the nuance. And again, they'll say that I'm glazing. That's why I defer to the experts. Brad, what's his face, former performance Maximilian Verstappen physio and performance guy. I mean, just defer to him. He'll tell you all of the sim stuff, all of the the over and above, the industry. He's not bad, that Maximilian Verstappen fair. However, Sir John, I will let me, as we round third base, let me give you this. This has really cheesed me off. As much as I love myself, Maximilian Verstappen, as much as he's a student of the game, F1.com released the video. Well, maybe I'll bring it up tomorrow, but I don't want to. F1 are a bit techie with some of their footage, and they can get a bit grudgeful. I don't want to cheese anybody off. In there, they put the very famous pictures. So they've doctored some very famous F1 images. One of them is the picture of Nelson Piquet, Nigel Mansell, Ayrton Senna, and Alain Prost. You know, the one on the wall. All of them hugging and looking prime. One of the best cohorts as far as F1 drivers to have ever done it. They switch. This is so cat. I can't believe I'm saying this. They switched Alain Prost for Gerhard Berger. And the question that they're asking to the current 20 drivers on the grid is, what's changed? What have we photoshopped? Show it to Kimi Antonelli. Kimi Antonelli's like, God-tiered knowledge, is a student of the game in a way that I didn't think he could ever be. He knows all of them. This helmet's changed. Senna's jumping out of the car, and it's not Senna in 89. It's Prost that's getting out the car because he was beat. Kimi Antonelli knows. Wrong track. Doesn't have a grandstand. Go back. I'll link it in the description. It's worth a watch. Max Verstappen, student of the game, also watches all of the tape, knows all of the history. He was the one that when they were in the bloody pit in the post the Canadian Grand Prix crash, he was the one who was in the cool down room, and George Russell said, "Oh, that's just like Jensen and Hamilton's crash." And he was like, "Oh yeah, in 2012." Like, he just knew the date. So I know that Max is a student of the game. For them to put that picture up, very, very famous, one of the most famous F1 driver pictures or F1 pictures ever of Mansell, Senna, Prost and Piquet, with Prost photoshopped out, replaced with Gerhard Berger. Put that up to Max Verstappen and ask him what's wrong with that photo. And Maximilian Verstappen, 4-time champion, student of the game, didn't know what it was. He didn't know that Gerhard Berger didn't belong in that picture and that it should have been Alain Prost. Ladies and gentlemen, what are we doing here? Bringing shame on the Verstappen name. How very dare you, Mr. Maximilian Verstappen. He needs to read that. As brilliant as he is in the car, I can never criticise him for that. That is absolute chaos. We go again. Chat, same time tomorrow. You guys have been legends as always. Between now and next time, the prosecution rests. No further questions, Your Honour.